Bom dia a todos, sejam muito bem-vindos ao nosso webinar. Meu nome é André Machado de Barcelos, eu faço parte do time de marketing aqui da NTT DATA Business Solutions do Brasil. É um prazer contar com a presença de todos vocês aqui nessa manhã e hoje nós vamos tratar de um tema que é super relevante para quem é da área de TI, mas também é de interesse de quem é da área de negócios. Eu estou falando de cibersegurança. E eu acredito que todos vocês estejam por dentro do aumento que nós tivemos nos últimos anos, tanto no número de ataques quanto no caos que esses invasores têm causado. E como usuários de SAP ou futuros usuários de SAP, esse tema tem que ser realmente uma das prioridades, do seu time e da sua estrutura de segurança de TI. Eu tenho certeza que ninguém aqui quer correr o risco de ter o seu ecossistema SAP comprometido ou sob qualquer risco. Então, para evitar as duas situações, seu sistema precisa realmente ser monitorado 24 horas por dia, 7 dias por semana, para que a sua empresa esteja preparada para responder a qualquer incidente suspeito de segurança. Mas isso é só um pouquinho do que o SecurityBridge oferece a vocês, e vocês vão saber mais em alguns instantes. Mas antes, só um aviso, eu gostaria de dizer que as dúvidas serão respondidas nos últimos 10, 15 minutos do nosso evento. Então, caso você queira fazer alguma pergunta, tenha alguma questão a ser levantada, por favor, aqui embaixo tem um botãozinho de Q&A. Vocês podem fazer as perguntas ali. No final, nós passaremos aos nossos especialistas para responder. Então, falando em especialista, eu gostaria de convidar o COO da NTT Data Business Solutions, Martin Strenfer, que nos vai dar um overview sobre essa parceria global da NTT Data com a SecurityBridge. Martin, seja bem-vindo, a palavra é sua.
Obrigado, André. Bom dia. Obrigado a todos a participarem nesse webinar. Como o André falou, esse tema cada vez é mais importante. Justamente na pandemia aumentou muito a digitalização de todas as áreas e, obviamente, os ataques também. Só em 2020, no Brasil, tinha 8 bilhões de tentativas de ataque. Imagina só a quantidade. Obviamente, não todos resultaram em um desastre como nas lojas americanas que vivenciamos em março, onde eles ficaram fora durante 3 dias, mas temos vários clientes onde realmente eles perderam SAP parcialmente, ficaram dias sem SAP por causa de ataques. E recuperar isso e recuperar não só o dano sistêmico, sino também a reputação é muito complicado. Então, eu queria aí convidar o Ivan Mans da SecurityBridge para falar para vocês um pouco mais sobre o que nós podemos oferecer juntos para ter um SAP mais seguro para vocês. Hi, Ivan. Thanks for participating with us in the webinar. If you could please move on to the next slides. I will still do this part in Portuguese and then give over to you in English. Como falei, o Ivan, ele é o CTO da SecurityBridge e é uma referência na Europa em temas de cibersegurança para a SAP. O SecurityBridge é uma ferramenta, é um add-on que está sendo instalado no próprio SAP e que é muito robusto e bem efetivo. Você consegue fazer isso funcionar em dias. Não é um projeto de implementação como vocês conhecem do SAP, com blueprint, com realização. Aí realmente você instala o sistema, ele vem com best practice e em 2, 3 dias ele está funcionando e pode mostrar para vocês as áreas com mais risco e onde vocês têm que atuar. Tudo isso o Ivan vai mostrar para vocês depois live num sistema. Vocês vão ter acesso a suporte local no Brasil através da gente. Nós somos aí expertos nesse sistema e podem dar todo o suporte em português para vocês. E, obviamente, caso tenha um problema de produto, vamos repassar para SecurityBridge, que está situado na Alemanha. eles estão trabalhando continuamente em melhorar o sistema, baseado realmente nos requerimentos que vocês têm. Eles têm uma rede de parceiros enormes globalmente, não só a gente, também tem outros parceiros como nós, se vocês preferem trabalhar com o IS que vocês têm, talvez ele até também já é parceiro, então vocês não são restritos a só trabalhar com a gente. E já tem muitas empresas como referências que também podemos agendar ligações de referência, onde vocês podem falar com eles para entender as experiências deles e a vantagem de trabalhar com esse sistema. So Ivan, I am done with this slide. I would like to give over to you to show to our customers the capabilities of SecurityBridge.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. You've actually given me a very good exercise of language training, I have to say. So the rest of the conversation I will be doing in English, so I do apologize for that, but I'll try to repeat myself more sufficiently so that you got a good understanding of what is SecurityBridge, what can it do, and how does it work.
And please, sorry, Ivan, please, you can write your questions in English or in Portuguese, how you prefer. I will help with the translation.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you, Martin, for helping me to, to moderate today's meeting. And, you may also have to stop me in terms of timing, because as soon as we start chatting and deep diving into the technology, time will fly by quickly. Now, first of all, why would you have to secure SAP? Let's start with the very, very basics. And we see a lot of organizations today spending an enormous amount of budget on one side on the SAP system itself. On the other side, also on securing, the IT infrastructure like network, routers, firewalls. But what we unfortunately very often still see is that a lot of organizations, although they do run SAP, a system that is actually, containing their crown jewels of the system or of the corporation, is not really secure. And that's exactly the topic that we will be addressing today. Why do you need to monitor SAP? Why do you need to secure SAP? And how can you do this? Now, the platform that we're going to talk about today is SecurityBridge. Now, it's a platform that, I have a very close relationship to because I've been, very much involved in the very early developments. And what really makes it so unique? What does it really stand out from anything that you would see in the market today or anything that you would see within SAP standards? Is there are some key differences, like, for instance, speed to security. A lot of tooling and a lot of products on the market, they require an extensive time to be implemented. Now, SecurityBridge calls for speed to security. You're operational in no time. You do not need to have a lengthy project because every single SAP customer, they have the same challenges. And therefore, we have really, automated as much as possible in order to have, an audit at a click. You directly see where your vulnerabilities are. Now, continuous security is another, people say it may be, a sales statement, and that's not really the case because the security, the risk factor and the attack surface is continuously moving. Attackers do spend a lot of time to also research SAP systems. And in order to be continuously up to date for new and evolving threats, you need to be continuously on the hook. You need to be continuously updated. You could see it like a virus scanner. You run your virus scanner on your machine, and every time there is a new virus, you receive an update. We've done exactly the same thing with SecurityBridge for SAP. If there is a new vulnerability, you're going to see it and you can actually scan for it. Now, extended security, you're going to see in the demo, we're going to walk through some dashboards. You're going to see a lot of KPIs. How can you track? And so there is a lot of visibly tangible material to really help you to grow your security posture. Now, what we also shortly touch base upon is what we call Bridge and Connect. And that actually, gives a little bit of an explanation on why we are called SecurityBridge. Yeah, we bridge SAP security with IT security. And therefore, if you would already have a security operations center, if you would already run Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel, any of those big data tools that allow you to process vast amount of data. Now we can almost plug and play information from the SAP landscape into those systems. And then when we talk about holistic approach, now holistic security means we're not just focusing on a single element in security, we're really focusing on all potential capabilities and attack vectors in order to build a reliable security program that will also really help you to overall reduce the organizational risk. Now, we're going to today look at 4 main capabilities. Now, next to this, we have a few more capabilities, but even though Martin was very nice to grant us an hour, even that hour would not be sufficient. So I'm going to zoom in onto 4 specific vulnerabilities or specific capabilities. Now, the first one is vulnerability management. That deals with vulnerabilities within the configuration. Now, SAP, if you migrate, let's say, from an R3 system to an S4 system, and you would assume that you're actually secure. Unfortunately, that's not the case. SAP has been doing excellent work in order to, go for designs like, security by design, security by default. But we still see in the SAP space, a lot of products have vulnerabilities, very standard vulnerabilities. Now, some very basic ones would be, if you install an SAP system, it has standard users, and a standard user has a standard password. Unfortunately, we see that still a lot of organizations did not change the standard users. Now, of course, this sounds very, very basic, but you would be surprised how often we still see this being a real risk. Now, of course, vulnerability management, the way we implement it with SecurityBridge, is a lot more advanced. So it's a capability that will help us to really harden the system, and there are literally thousands of validations that need to be performed. Now, as you may know, also SAP has vulnerabilities, and for that they have established a process which is called Patch Day. So it's every second Tuesday of the month, a so-called Patching Tuesday. SAP as a vendor releases security notes, and as an organization you need to keep a very close tab on implementing those notes. Now, we know there is Solution Manager and there are certain standard reports that you can use, but where's the difference? Now, with SecurityBridge, first of all, you will be informed instantly on which of those nodes are actually relevant for your system. So imagine, even this month, SAP released 15 to 20 new security nodes, but you may have, you got 5 systems, you maybe have 100 systems. Independent upon the size of your landscape, you still need to do the juggling, which node is relevant for my system. And that is the complexity that we take away. SecurityBridge will save you a lot of time. It will tell you where you're missing a certain patch. And until you are patched, and then we will see that later on, we bring you the visibility because we monitor. Now, SAP fixes its own source code, its own vulnerabilities, and they do a really good job. But what about you having custom code? If you got legacy code, if you got ABAP code that you have developed internally or with a third-party provider, there's a very good chance that it may contain 0 days. Now, a 0 day is a vulnerability which is not yet disclosed or for which no solution is yet available. Now, such 0 days, they are an imminent threat to any organization because we see, we are running on many systems on a global scale, and we still see there are a lot of vulnerabilities within custom code. So therefore, SecurityBridge also focuses on securing your code base and helping developers, whether they are your developers or they are third-party developers, we will give you the necessary tooling in order to grow into a DevSecOps process. Now, the last capability which I'm going to talk about today is called threat detection. Threat detection is monitoring. Only when you monitor the system, you will really get to know what is ongoing. This is what we call get to know the unknown knowns. And very often, and we see that with a lot of organizations, as soon as you install SecurityBridge, eyes open, because this is when they really start seeing what happens inside of the box. Because you may have the understanding that your SAP system is not connected to the network, to the internet. And so it's maybe just enclosed within your own perimeter. And you will see as soon as you start monitoring that once in a while you see login attempts. You see at least, certain service calls being attempted. So that is the visibility that SecurityBridge is going to give you. Now, in a wider space of security, a lot of organizations already apply this today. SAP has a so-called security operations map, which is that little map in the middle here. And this map, if you would, really monitor every single box, which really goes from an, organizational setup downwards to, to the environment, so network security and so on. If you would touch every single box, you would have what we call ultimate security. No, trust me, I've seen organizations spending 7-digit numbers on investments in order to secure SAP. Does it bring them to ultimate security? In all reality, no. Ultimate security does not exist. But with SecurityBridge, we will get you very, very, very far, because SecurityBridge serves a community, serves capabilities that actually map to the SAP security operations map. You can see every single block, and Martin for sure will distribute a PowerPoint later on. You can really read through all the different capabilities. So there are, there's tooling for, user and identity management. There is tooling for developers. There is tooling for, that helps you with data privacy and protection, and so on and so on. And so it's a very vast platform that we're going to talk about. Now, before we're going to go into the actual demo part, which is definitely the most sexy part of today's webinar, I want to give you a visual on what is SecurityBridge technically. Now, technically is what we call it's a platform solution. At the end, it is an SAP add-on, and the add-on is certified by SAP. So SAP actually, gives us a stamp saying you can safely use it in about every single SAP system, whether you're on RISE or whether you're entirely on-premise or cloud-based, it doesn't matter. There will be SecurityBridge for every single version of SAP. Now, the kernel or the core of the product is developed in ABAP. So it's a tool, it's a platform that lives inside of SAP. Now, independent upon your technology stack, because not every SAP system is an ABAP system. You have ABAP, Java, HANA, you got SaaS solutions. Every single system can be monitored with SecurityBridge. We only need to have one system in your landscape, and that's maybe also important, as SecurityBridge is available either as a managed service or as a on-premise solution. So that's something that you can also, differentiate in between. As soon as you install the platform, you instantly get access to all the different capabilities. And, it may look like a very complicated infographic where you see vulnerability management, security compliance, threat detection, and many more. Important is you can use all of them. You don't have to use all of them. And as soon as we go into the demo lab, you would see that you got certain capabilities. And we see most of the organizations, you start with, maybe look at fixing your patching. Make sure that you implement all your security patching. It may sound very basic, and it is really a measurement where you can really improve your actual SAP security posture a lot with little effort. We will also talk about vulnerability management. This is the exercise where we're going to harden the system, and we're going to talk about threat detection, the real monitoring. Everything else around it later on, if we would go into follow-up sessions, and then we can really deep dive onto this. Now, important to note, SecurityBridge is an open platform, and this is also what we really want to help the community with. We do not want to bring security through obscurity. No, it's all about integration. We automated a lot of the security aspects that are needed for SAP. And we do deliver out-of-the-box integrations with security operations centers. So if you already have an ArcSight, a Curate, or a Sentinel, or Splunk, it is very, very easy to just plug and play interface. Now, of course, also if you're already looking into XDR and SOAR solutions, so meaning automated remediation, automated action, also for that, we have a full integration set. We do communicate to all leading providers. And then something that we at least I'm asked very often is, as soon as you see a vulnerability, can you actually also fix it? Of course we can. And that's the reason why, with NTT, we are able to, offer remediation services. And, a key element in that is ITSM integration within your change management tool. Are you using ticketing tools to get things resolved? No, SecurityBridge will also help you there because there is a very, very smooth integration. Now, of course, so far the slideware, of course, the target that Martin had was to actually show software. So I suggest that let's deep dive into a actual demo lab. So what I'm going to show you today is what you now see is this is SecurityBridge. It is installed. And of course, I have to say, we are using a demo lab. Unfortunately, customers are not that keen to really do a demo within a live environment. So what I'm showing you is really greenfield. Also, in case you would like to explore this for yourself, this is what you get to see. Now, as you see, everything is already Fiori based. It is inside of SAP. You just need to nominate one of your systems as a leading system. Now, I will not talk too much about how do you configure this and so on. There's only one thing I would like to quickly show you. There is one application from where you can do all the configuration. And the reason I show this application quickly is I want to show you it is very, very easy in order to start adding systems. Now, you may have a production system. You will have, of course, and a test system and a development system and a sandbox. And you may not only have an ECC, you may have an S4, a BW, a PO, and so on. You will have a lot of systems. Now, with SecurityBridge, it's quite easy to just start connecting all the individual systems. It's actually a very short wizard that you need to use. Now, as part of the wizard, you can see what kind of systems do we actually support. Every ABAP system, every Java system, every HANA-based system, and of course also a number of cloud systems like a SuccessFactors, a Cloud Connector, a SAP router, a BTP, and so on. And so everything that runs the SAP technology stack, we can monitor, we can secure. Now, when we talk about, how do you secure, it is important that we validate or we confirm. In the beginning I said, speed is security. What do we check? And I have to emphasize, SecurityBridge is coming pre-configured entirely out of the box. We are working with SAP closely. We're working with a lot of independent security researchers. We work with SAP user groups, etc. So we have a lot of intel on, first of all, new vulnerabilities, on different threat actors, on different vulnerability types, and so on. And what we have done is we have created a standard list of validations a standard list of controls. And this standard list, the SecurityBridge standard as we call it here, is coming entirely pre-configured. And so if you talk about any new vulnerability, definitely it's going to be in here. I think we have a set of today about 400 different types of controls, and they probably end up in a few thousand use cases. So there's a lot of material. Of course, if you really want to go very advanced, the platform will also allow you, if you go into change mode, you can build your own controls, etc. Now, I will not bore you to death with the configuration. As soon as you have done the configuration, you have an instant access to all of the different tiles that we see on the top. And every single tile, it corresponds to a building block that you have seen on the previous infograph. Now, I'm going to start off, we're going to walk through this left to right. The first thing is monitoring. If you are looking to install SecurityBridge, if you have a certain interest to really secure your SAP systems, I always advise you, monitor, activate this. And as soon as you activate, you're going to see how we now see at the moment, we got 0 very high severity events in the dashboard, which is good. This is the way it should be. As soon as this number is not 0, it means something is going on. And then you need to take action. Now, of course, since we are in a demo lab, we won't see a lot of, events happening. But what kind of events do we see? First of all, we get to see, which are the systems that generate issues, which are the people connecting, which are the services that are connecting, which are the identification sensors that are triggered, because SecurityBridge is sensor-based. It is real-time monitoring. Martin, if you would now connect to the system and you would start extracting credit card data, you would have an SAP user and you would log on and you would extract credit card data, let's say. SecurityBridge would instantly see that. And I get to see an alert here. I can actually, instantly also act by removing you from the SAP system. I can lock your account. I can deprovision your authorizations, or I can just entirely kick you out. So there's a lot of automation possible. Now, what exactly do we look for? And that's a key question. And this is what SecurityBridge with that baseline has automated. So there is no need to define use cases and so on. That's exactly what we've done. So everything that you may have an interest in that is security relevant will be covered. Also, not every organization runs real-time monitoring on SAP. Some organizations, depending on your industry, it is already sufficient to just be able to answer a lot of questions from the auditors, like how often was the system opened? How often was a critical authorization assigned to someone? So these are just legit questions that deal with auditing. And the very same things you can answer with SecurityBridge. So if you say, critical downloads, so I just search for the word critical, and then let's say, show me all the critical data extractions that we've seen across the entire SAP system. I do a search and you can see nothing. Good. So there was not a single critical download on this box at all in the last 1 hour. Now let's go back last week. What happened in the last 7 days? Did we see any critical download? Even there, nothing, which is brilliant. Now, of course, I did already create a very small test case just before the demo. And then let me first of all reset my filter. I go into the work center. You can see we do have a lot of events, or maybe I just take all the events that we see across the last 7 days. Now, SecurityBridge at this moment is not going to read that data in real time from every system. No, it has already been reading all that data, in the past. And I'm now just reporting on events that we've seen in the past. So, for instance, we're monitoring a HANA sandbox, it seems. We're monitoring one single production box. And we can see someone has been monitoring or modifying an audit log. And so you can directly see just by the color coding, what kind of issues happened on the system. So if I just deep dive, click on it, I can see someone disabled an audit log. Of course, this is now a sample example that we had. But you will be able to quickly zoom in onto what happens. Now, of course, as soon as we see there is an event, we can action at machine speed. If someone downloads critical data, we send an email, we generate a support ticket, we lock the user and so on. So all of that is pre-configured. Now, monitoring, super important. You really get to know what is ongoing on this box. Of course, in the beginning, if you have a non-secure system, monitoring remains passive. It does not mean because you're going to see a lot of events still in the system. Now, it all starts with, and maybe I should have shown this first, is harden your system. Make sure that your systems do not have any major security flaws. Now, for this, we have an app which takes a very similar approach. As soon as you open the app, you get to see all the systems that you have connected. And we're connected to the demo lab, we have an S4 system, we have a SuccessFactors instance, and we have a HANA system. Now, I'm just going to click on, let's say, I'm just going to take a development box because I know that we do have some traffic. As soon as we click on a system, we get to see how secure is this system. And as you can see, just by the rating, if this would be my score in high school, my parents would not be happy because it's definitely, I'm not succeeding. Unfortunately, this is the state, and this box is not fixed. It's not a hardened box. This is just an SAP standard empty box. And you can see security rating is not good. And why is it not good? There's one thing I can say. The trend is going up, means someone is working on the system to make it better. And so we not only do single snapshots, SecurityBridge will help you and guide you to become better. On the right-hand side, we can see by the area of responsibility where exactly this box is having issues. And we can see authorizations on this system are really bad, red. And we know we can do better because there is another system where we are scoring a lot better. And so there is some internal benchmarking. Now, you do have the separation in a way that we see most SAP organizations being split. You got, basis, you got development, authorization, and so on. Now you even have SOD, which is the GOC related, and every single of those areas, they all have a number of controls, and the number of controls is a cluster of checks. And I'm going to start with the very basics. Authorizations. Now, until a few years ago, SAP security means authorization management. That today is not the case anymore. So SAP is a lot closer connected to the network and the internet than you know. And so there is really a cyber risk. Now, of course, authorizations, they remain important. Now, as soon as I click on a single control, I get to see a lot of use cases. Now, these use cases, they come from the SAP security baseline, which we also converted into our standard. Now, let's only talk about the very first one. We can see that this box has 70 users and 19 users are having critical rights. It's not in balance. And security is all about balances. Of course, you always need to have critical users because someone needs to maintain the box, but it should be in balance. And knowing that, it's about 1/4, 1/3 of your users having critical rights is not okay. And you can actually see we've already accepted the risk with 32%. This is 68% is still open, not evaluated. The risk of an exploit using a critical user is very high. To fix it is very easy. Now, as soon as you click on it, you go one level deeper. And we always start with high level. How secure is my landscape? How secure is my system? How secure is my authorization setup? And how secure are my critical users? So you already have, a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details. We can see that this box has 21 SAP All assignments. Now, SAP All means you have God rights on the system. You can do anything on the system. So these are the users that you need to monitor. Now, of course, these profiles, they come pre-configured from the baseline. If you have your own profiles that are critical, just make sure they are part of the baseline and they're automatically checked. Now, important, as soon as you start an investment into security, you also need to make sure that you got your return on investment. You need to prove that your invest is really worth the effort and the money. Now, how to do so? SecurityBridge keeps an eye on the overall trend. And so, for instance, in this example on this box, you can see we created the demo lab. I think about a year ago in here. And so we can see we created more and more users. And so the blue line is the new users created. Now the orange line is the users that have critical rights. You can see we're still growing critical users. So bottom line, yes, we are making a little bit of progress, but not massively. So we know we can do a lot better. Now, clearly this is a snapshot in time. If I say this is a snapshot that was just taken even today, if I would do the same thing next month or, a year from today, you're able to track your progress and analysis now. But what SecurityBridge is really different is we not only do snapshots, we also monitor real time. As soon as one of these controls is violated, and violated in this case means as soon as someone manages to get critical authorizations, we will see it in real time. And here we see, on the 11th, there was a critical permission assignment, severity 10. So severity rating means that we use the CVSS scoring from the industry. Profile SAP All was added to a user, and he even modified his own user. So in real time, we identified the alert, and it is such a critical alert. Why is it a 10? Because this person modified his own account, and that is normally not okay. You normally have an established process to manage your SAP users. Now, if you click on the event, you open the event monitor. And that's exactly what we see here. So this is why we talk about a platform solution. So not only a static scan, not only real time, it's the combination that you need to do. And here you can see every single event has, we know who did it, what is the IP address. Implicit trust means that this person has been using this terminal more often. So it's definitely, this is an internal thing. It's not an external risk. If this would say suspicious identity, it could be a user that has never connected before. It could be an external user. Now, what is the risk? And then you have a lot of details that talk, that give you a lot of context on what did that user do with those critical rights. And here we see, we can instantly correlate the person received an SAP auto assignment. What else did they do? Okay, then they created an RFC destination. This is very critical. And so I know, of course, what happens because this is a basis person. And if I know it's a basis person and I know he's doing this as part of his normal job, it's very easy. You just go into actions, you say, create a rule and you filter it. You can go into accepting the risk. And this is a process that is self-learning. So the system will learn what is normal in your environment and what is an anomaly. And this way you can really focus on growing your security posture. Now, if I go back to the system, to all the different controls, now you can see it is almost like a Christmas tree. There's a lot of red here. Now, again, if you would convert every single red color item into green, and it's a bit of an exercise because not every check is very easy to fix. Some of them may even require you to run a smaller project. And there is no ultimate security, but there is guidance, of course, clearly from NTT, but there is also guidance within the tooling. There is a roadmap. If I would now compile a roadmap, let me quickly compile that on the fly. I'm compiling a roadmap that is going to help me. Where should I start in order to make my system more secure? And I can see the very first thing is authorizations. Make sure, and not only on this box, also on the other boxes, make sure that you first of all have your authorizations in order. Now, if you click on a single system, you go into these are the detailed findings, but you can say this user, and this user, let's say, that's fine. I accept this. You can go into the process of accepting the risk. Once you accept the risk, it remains documented, you're audit compliant, and your monitoring will learn from it. And so you do not receive false positives anymore. You don't have that security fatigue. The amount of alerts that you see, they will go down. Now, of course, as soon as you run through this entire exercise, your security posture is going to be a lot better. And every single major vulnerability that, is today known on the market will not be exploitable anymore. And so that is the overall target. Now, of course, if there is a new vulnerability coming up, and let me instantly move on to, the next part of the capability list is patching. SAP provides security patches. Now, we keep a very close tab. And, if I just click on latest advisories, we can already see here, we are indexing new database vulnerabilities. We're indexing SAP vulnerabilities and so on. And then we're going to see which of your systems are badly patched. Where do we still have issues? And we can see we have 11 hot news, and we can see, we do have a lot of, none of the hot news is missing. So we're good. So we don't have any crucial element missing on our system, but we do see that we have 18 high severity nodes missing on the landscape that are already older than 1 year. That means clearly I've not been doing my job. If you click on a certain system, then you directly get to see which are the SAP security nodes sorted by severity that you need to implement. And so it's a very powerful way to quickly see if you're having vulnerabilities. Now, of course, as soon as the market comes up with a new 0-day or SAP releases, or one of the vendors like us releases a new advisory, you will instantly be updated. It is like, keeping that virus scanner up to date, but then for SAP vulnerabilities. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about today quickly, and then Martin, you will have to give me an indication whether we already received questions. So do not hesitate. In case you do have a question, just put it into the chat. Code security. Coding is super important. We know that probably 98% of all the vulnerabilities in SAP, they find the root cause in coding flaws. An according flow could be backdoors, SQL injection, invalid validation of authorizations, etc., etc. So there are many more things to validate, and this kind of allows you to. For instance, we got 21 vulnerabilities in the sandbox. If I just click on landscape, we only got one box connected, unfortunately, but we can see we got 1.3 million lines of code. No, this is not a lot. Most customers that I see will have way more coding than this here. Now, don't forget, SAP itself is way larger than any operating system. So do not underestimate the complexity and the size of an SAP box. But we can see this box has a high severity rating of 0.02%. That's an excellent rating. If I would see a customer that with such a rating, he would get an award. And so because we still see there's a lot of vulnerabilities there. Now, clearly, since this is a sandbox and it hardly has coding, there's not much to show, but what we do display is we show you which are the very high severity events, and these are the vulnerabilities that you likely have to resolve, because we know that these are very easy to exploit, sometimes also externally. For instance, this example, Z build backdoor, that's an object that allows us to do a code inject. It's an object, in this case, it's not externally callable, but we've seen cases where through an external script, even on Google, you will find some scripts that allow you to do code injects. And here we can see directly, there is a vulnerability, it needs to be fixed. Everything that we see in SecurityBridge, there will always be a solution. What is our recommendation? And the recommendation is, there's always a manual, and so I would refer to the manual. Let's not deep dive on this specific example, but it's an extremely powerful way to quickly scan an entire SAP system, really hunting for vulnerabilities in your code base. Now, what I did not show you today, but it is available. What I'm now showing you is static code scanning. But if you have a development team, or let's say you import third-party software inside of your SAP system, we can also scan for transports. We can help developers to write secure coding from the beginning. We integrate within the development environment. So we integrate within the ABAP test cockpit, within Code Inspector, etc. So it's a very powerful element. Do not forget. Now, all of these capabilities, and I literally only showed you 4, and we have a lot more tiles, is eventually what is SecurityBridge. So we help you to monitor, harden, secure your code base, and maybe just one last sneak preview before we go into questions. And Martin, I told you probably will have to stop me. Since SecurityBridge is monitoring, we also monitor all the network traffic in between your SAP system. So if I would say, show me all the traffic, you would instantly get to see all your different SAP systems. And if I now say, only show me those ones that are not sufficiently hardened, then we can see we got communication channels that have not been hardened. You just have to click on one of these icons, you go into details, and you directly see what kind of calls are being called and why they are security critical. Also, in case you would have access to a production system without you knowing, maybe there is an open door, it will be visible here. This box is actually quite good. Nothing there, that means that we're really secure. So, Martin, you've been keeping quite close eye on the chat. Did we have any questions that you want me to answer?
Yes, thank you very much, Ivan. We have already a couple of questions. So the first one is if SecurityBridge is compatible only with S/4HANA.
Oh, no. So we are actually compatible with every single SAP version. There is a little caveat. The minimum NetWeaver release is 7.0. 7.0 is no longer in SAP mainstream support. So basically, in short, we support every system that is supported by SAP still today. If you got a system which is older than 7.0, the advice would not be run SecurityBridge, but upgrade, because we can't secure it anyway. It is so insecure. But as of 7.0 until the latest S4, it is fully supported.
Okay, thank you. Next one is, what exactly do I need to install in my system to use SecurityBridge?
Okay. In order to install, we need to separate between what is the technology stack that you want to secure. If we talk about an ABAP system, you need to import the ABAP add-on. At the end, that is a transport. As soon as the transport is imported, we need to have a user. We need to have a user in order for us to monitor your system. And that user has a dedicated authorization. So we are secure by default and by design. So the roles that we provide, they are very slim roles. So they will only allow reading. So that's for the ABAP system. So a transport and a user. For a Java system, very similar actually. It is you deploy a Java bean. Now we have a dedicated Java bean. You need to deploy it once, import, and it's only once. Also a user, and now we can monitor. For HANA databases, you don't need to install anything because there we will work with a secondary database connection, so there is no installation required. The same thing for a lot of these SaaS applications like SuccessFactors and so on. We can consume the data using an API, so no installation required. But we do see probably 90% of all the systems that we monitor today, and we literally, it's more than a few thousand systems that we monitor, and the vast majority is still ABAP, Java, and HANA. And for them, you need to install a package once. What is the impact? Because that is very often, a bit of a follow-up question. The impact of SecurityBridge is neglectable. Of course, if you monitor, especially when you want to do real-time monitoring, there is always the need for some CPU power. So we've done the analysis across all the customers that we have, and we know that we consume about 1 to 2% of your CPU power for monitoring. If you want a real-time monitoring, if you say, I don't want to have real-time monitoring, I just want to have static reporting, there is no impact at all. It is 0% almost. It is not measurable, but it is typically the footprint that we have on the system. It's not going to break your system, for sure not. And it's not going to slow down the system. And, I think I've answered it, Martin.
Yeah, and we need to install the controller on one system and on all other systems a very lightweight agent. Yeah, correct. So that's also it's a good point that you mentioned again. So one of the systems in your landscape is nominated as a controlling system. So if you want to change config, you only need to go to one system. And there's no need that everything is managed from one single location, and every other system just gets a lightweight component installed, but that's a one-time activity. Yeah. Great, thanks. The next question is then, how is SecurityBridge being updated in case of a new vulnerability?
Oh, that's a very good question. I may not have touched base upon that. So we actually got, if I do cloud.securitybridge.com. So that's a website. Feel free to visit it. And what we've done is we've indexed every single vulnerability, every single advisory out here. We work with security researchers. We do some own research. We work with SAP. And clearly, this is now just public material. You can just freely use it. But what we do as soon as there is a new vulnerability, and very often, I'll quickly show you in the settings app. If SAP Patch Day, this is when SAP goes into disclosure of new vulnerabilities and releases patches. We always update our cloud, and every customer has a cloud connection. So you're able to automatically source an update from our platform. What does this update do? You receive what we call new signatures, and we will tell you if this happens, that is a problem. So you will automatically source this. The baseline that you apply will automatically be updated. And there is a little button here. So it now says one notification. It would say there is an update. It would download the update for you. You would have to click the button distribute. And then this update is automatically sent to all the systems. So every system then knows, okay, there is a new vulnerability. I need to check for it. And as of that time, everything is automatically checked. So typically the time that we see between a new vulnerability and us covering it, it depends on the complexity. Log4j, I think we were the very first SAP vendor that was able to identify Log4j in SAP, and that took us about 5 days. Some of the vulnerabilities, if they are really straightforward, we are able to detect them in typically 1 to 2 hours after the public release. So this is typically how we keep up to date with the market.
Okay, then there are two questions very similar. It's about the implementation time or the installation time. How long does it take minimum and average for project to implement SecurityBridge until you can start using it? And if the size of the company is relevant for this time.
The size of the company is relevant. We got, organizations that have one SAP system, and I think the largest that I've worked with has more than 500. There is a difference there, clearly. How do we normally start? You start implementing your controlling system on a central system. That could be Solution Manager, GRC, or S4. You just select any system. Now, it will take as an average. You get transport, you get a short manual. NTT does install it for you. Once it's up and running, typically, in pure effort, I'm not talking about the change management process, 1 hour, 2 hours, and you're instantly running. So what you see here, I literally installed it in 1.5 hours. Full scope. As soon as we run it, you got results. Now, and then comes the next question is, then you have results. How long will it take you to resolve those results and to consume all the data? That is different on what we see. If we see a lot of issues, you're going to have a lot of work to remediate and mitigate, but you will not spend a lot of time on implementing the platform. We want you to really spend the time on fixing the issues. And so this is a reality where we see most of the effort go to. And of course, also your internal processes. Sometimes they say, a fool with a tool is still a fool sometimes. And so you really need to make sure that you embed security in your daily operations. Of course, we can tell you which patches are missing, but you still need to have a process that applies your patches. So therefore, it's important. How are you as an organization organized to deal with what we bring up? So I would not worry too much about the implementation effort because that is typically click and play, but it is really what comes out and how to embed this.
Thank you. Then we have two more questions. One is about the cost, the values. If our customers can buy it locally in local currency, or if they need to import the service and the license from abroad. I can answer this. So everybody can buy the license through NTT DATA Brazil in local currency without the need to do the import process. So all license and service can be bought directly by NTT DATA Brazil. Another question is, can we hire NTT Data just to run the assessment and then use the result to sell better the tool? Yes, this can be done, but we need to be careful there. It's not always the best thing to use a first security check as a selling argument. There will be a lot of red flags. So normally it's better to sell it as a security process. But obviously we can do a proof of value. We can do an assessment. This is definitely possible. Ivan, any other comment there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we see there's quite a lot of, an organization, everyone understands that they need a secure SAP, but you still need to motivate the investor. You need to build your business case. How do you build your business case? Indeed, very often you run an assessment, you get a report, and you got 5 major vulnerabilities. Maybe we can even see an exploit. And so therefore, some organizations call it the proof of concept. We call it the proof of value. We know that the concept works, but we will help you to prove also the value.
Thank you. So this was all the questions. We are 1 minute over our time, so very good timing. Thanks a lot, Ivan. Thanks a lot. Muito obrigado a todos vocês. Se vocês têm agora interesse em conhecer mais do produto, podemos marcar uma sessão individual com cada de vocês, sem problema nenhum, em português. Vocês só têm que enviar um e-mail para mim ou para o executiva de conta de vocês e podemos seguir trabalhando em fazer o seu SAP mais seguro. Muito obrigado.
Well, thank you, Ivan, for your explanation. I guess it was a very rich content for our customers, and I'd like to thank you. It was a pleasure. Bom, pessoal, nós chegamos aqui ao final do nosso evento e vocês viram, foi uma explicação bastante profunda, bastante intensa sobre o valor que tem o SecurityBridge para a segurança do seu SAP. Nós esperamos que todos tenham aproveitado, tenham gostado desse conteúdo. Como o Martin disse, vocês podem entrar em contato com os nossos account executives para marcar uma sessão particular para entender como o SecurityBridge pode ajudar a sua organização. Então, Martin e Ivan, muito obrigado. Thank you, Ivan. E em nome da NTT DATA Business Solutions, agradeço a participação de todos vocês. Em nome da SecurityBridge também. Até uma próxima oportunidade. Tchau, tchau.